If I can predict your views on one topic by hearing your views about another unrelated topic, you are not thinking independently. Example, if your views on immigration allow someone to accurately predict your views on abortion and gun control, there's a chance you're not thinking independently.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Welcome back to the Skippy and Doogles show, people.
On today's show, we have a company that gets 98% of their revenue from the federal government. We have Berkshire Hathaway, Doogles breakdown of the Engel letter, which we've all been waiting for. Morgan Housel, a Breaking Bad-like train heist of Jordan Force, which is, I'm the most excited about that. And rich people in this country doing 50% of the spending. And then we have listener mail. 2 pieces, I believe. Jam-packed today, Doogles. Are you ready for this?
No. Does that matter?
Yeah, I would just tell the listeners to hang tight because Doogles had way too much to drink last night at a bachelor party, and it's going to be entertaining.
It's going to be fun. Let's get after it.
What's up with you?
Oh, I'm just living the dream, man. Living the dream. I'm out here in California this week, which is a wonderful place, especially when the tides are turning back in Colorado from a weather perspective. So I get that 70s, 80s vibe going on right now.
It was beautiful this week, man.
It was really nice.
Climbed
really
a mountain
nice.
yesterday, and it was great.
So
listen, miniature mountain near the office.
a hill.
So Booz Allen Hamilton, you familiar?
Of course.
They employ 34,000 people.
Okay, that's too many.
Current market cap is like 14 billion. It's down since Trump took presidency. And here's the thing I cannot get over. 98% of their revenue comes from the federal government.
I don't think that's true.
I'm not fact checking the Wall Street Journal. Feel free to read their 10K if you want. I could not. Current share price is, let's see, around $110 a share, in that range. I would not pay $10 per share for this thing.
Yes, you would. Yes,
I would pay nothing. The entire business model. We talk about revenue.
What's the revenue? What's the absolute dollar value?
Yeah, gosh, you're gonna give me 1 second.
Because 14 billion. In order to have a market cap of 14 billion, I would need $20 billion in revenue. And I don't think they have that.
Yeah. Morningstar is slow. No, they only have 12 billion in revenue.
Yeah. I would need the multiple that I need on this is like a 0.7.
No, the multiple I need on this is like a 0.1. All of their revenue is going away. Do you not understand that when you have an administration in place that's all about change, sometimes change for the sake of change, like right now it's rock the boat phase. And they have publicly said, like Department of Government Efficiency has said there's $65 billion in government contracts out there, a lot which go to Booz Allen Hamilton. There's other companies like Accenture and IBM that give us money. They said we're done with those. And Doogles, I doubt you've ever worked in federal government financing, but I've spent some time there. Every federal government contract has this thing called a termination for convenience, which means
of course,
if the federal government decides they're done, they're done. It's this really unique contract structure. They don't have to finish out. They don't have to pay you the extra $3 billion they owe you. They just say, we're not paying anymore.
It's the most PSA for the people. That is the most important clause to have in any contract that you sign.
Yeah, the only one who gets it is the federal government. Am I overreacting here?
That's why I put a 0.7. That's why I want a 0.7. Because you're saying right now. You're saying right now. I get that. But you're a long-term investor. And so what's happening right now, and legitimately right now, what we're talking about is 30 days after the current administration came in. Like, who knows what that's going to look like in a year?
Okay. Yes. This is not a company that I really want to own or have ever wanted.
No, absolutely not. I'm not buying it no matter what.
My point one is obviously suspect. But you should, if you guys are interested in this at all, you should read the Wall Street Journal. Just read their CEO's talking points about what they are trying to skirt. Oh, we're not a government contractor. We're a technology provider. Like, we don't make PowerPoints. We do all this other. It's like, no, you don't.
There was this place in San Francisco when I lived there called King of Thai was the name of the restaurant. You walk into this place, it's got real nice couches. I mean, they were comfy. It had 65-inch televisions, beautiful, crisp. They played sports all the time on there. $5 entrees. Every entree was $5. All their beers were $2. You walk into a place, comfy couches, $5, $2 big screen TVs. One day I walk in, they had signs everywhere that said, "We are not a sports bar." And the first thing that came to my mind is, are sports bars taxed differently? Like there's some reason why they needed to not be a sports bar, when very clearly what they were was a sports bar.
Booz Allen Hamilton is not a government contractor that makes PowerPoints.
Yes,
they just have an 85-year history of doing that, and get basically, let's just round up to 100% of their revenue from the federal government.
Yeah. The quick story also that I've told here before that you'll love is the one when I was at McKinsey. And when I was at McKinsey, and I went into a partner's office and I said, okay, we can all agree that we are really bad. We're really bad at consulting companies, right? The look on this man's face, but then I continued, but we are a fantastic university. Like, we teach people how to be good CEOs. We teach people how to analyze businesses. We're fantastic at that, but really bad at consulting. Not appreciated. Was not appreciated. Doogles brings the juice. People don't like the juice, though.
I mean, I've been in the company or business subsidiary that's going through an identity crisis like Booz Allen Hamilton is right now. And it's kind of a hilarious time. No one in Booz Allen thinks of it as hilarious right now because their jobs are at risk. But if you could just be a fly on the wall and like laugh at the hilarity of them spending 85 years saying we do one thing, and then within 3 weeks being like, oh, we don't actually do that. That's not our...
Yeah, don't check our PowerPoints from last quarter when slide number 2 was, here's what we do. One of my first things I did when I joined McKinsey was they told me to go through old PowerPoints and remove one of the most amazing companies of all time that they listed in there, called Enron.
Yep. Just take that out. I mean, the good thing is with AI, you wouldn't ever got the job because AI can do that now.
I know. I was really good at it, though. I was really good. Really good. Okay. Can I reach into the fishbowl?
Yeah, you need to tell us about Berkshire already.
Berkshire Hathaway. Are you familiar with this company?
No.
I just came across this company.
Yeah.
They've got like $330 billion in cash. It's ridiculous. This company came out of nowhere, run by a guy named Warren Buffett. This company, Berkshire. So they released last Saturday. They came out with their earnings, and Warren put out the annual letter.
Yep. And
this, for me, you said you don't like to read these. I know, it's a whole thing with you.
No, I have to be like in a mood is all I mean. I don't like the amount of investment reporters on X Sunday morning that wasted their entire day Sunday reading the thing and summarizing it is kind of disgusting.
It's like 6 pages. I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure what they were doing. It's probably a little more than that. But it didn't take that long to read. But I read this, and this was one of my favorites in a while. And not because it spewed more about their company than was typical, but the way it read to me, this is just Doogles. This is just doogly-doogling. The way it read to me was Warren does not intend to write many more of these, if not any more of these.
Well, so when we were in town last May.
Omaha, you're talking about.
Omaha. We went to Omaha. We were in the stands, taking part of the festivities, which, PSA, there's no festivities Friday night.
Yeah, so there's zero, and actually not very many on Saturday.
But it was clear he talked about how much he was slowing down. Yeah, I think we can speculate that. Well, no, not even speculate. What you're saying here is true. I'm just trying to confirm that with a different data point.
But I think last year he was getting over the fact that Charlie had just died, Charlie Munger. This year, I think he's getting to the fact that he may not even want to do this anymore. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it's probably not a want to. It's probably that it becomes more difficult to be.
He wants one more. He wants one more at bat. I think that's legitimately all that he wants. Is he wants deploy the cash.
300 billion in cash. Yes,
that's all he wants to do. But he doesn't want to run this company anymore. So this year, let's get to the letter. This year, there were a few things that really stood out to me. The number one thing that stood out to me was he talks about this guy, Pete, and the story of in this, and Pete died last November. That's why. Pete was one of the people that ran a company that Berkshire Hathaway bought about 20 years ago. He died last November. That's why he's talking about him. But the way he talks about this story, I think, was so germane to what we've talked about when it comes to Charlie Munger and Berkshire Hathaway in the past. He just talks about what a great human he was. One of my favorite parts of the story with Pete is he asked Pete how much money he wants to make. And what Warren said, I'm going to take his word for it. What Warren said was he went, whatever number he told me, I would pay him. And what Pete came back with was, you make $100,000 a year. That's what I want to make. Making more than your boss doesn't make sense. That's what he said. And I think that is something that is so lost today in society, was the two sides of that. The one side from Warren saying, no matter what he said, I would have paid him because I trust him. Because I trust him.
Well, and the backstory is Pete went to Warren to sell his successful company and said, I'd like to sell it to you. I appreciate the way you run businesses. Warren agreed. They easily got to a fair price.
He agreed that
they had to talk.
You do appreciate how I run businesses. That's what he agreed with. Yeah, no, I think that is an important part of it. And he looked at the company and he was like, solid company, but the human is what was so important there. I missed that. And there was something else that I read this week that also kind of reminded me of this fact, that this was just a statement from an article. We don't have to go into the article, but the statement from it, I think, is true, of how we used to in America, even if someone was rich, we valued their character. Now character matters so much less.
It seems to. I don't think it actually does.
No, I agree. Sorry. But on this day of our Lord in 2025, I think character does matter less. On this day. I don't think it does in society as a whole over any even like near term in months. But I think right now it does. The Pete point, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up and accentuating it is because it matters for a different part of the letter as well. What Warren is trying to do in this letter, in my opinion, is he is trying to say, remember who America is. Remember. Because he has stressed so many times in the past, bet on America, bet on America, bet on America. Do not short America. What you doing shorting America?
Is he saying that, or is he saying remember what America can be?
He's saying what? No, he's saying what it is. I don't mean who the people are today or anything like ephemeral. The core of America, because that's what you have to remember, in my opinion. For this country, it's even if you go back to the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, it's so easy for folks to say things like, yeah, but Thomas Jefferson had slaves. So what is he talking about? Like, we're free. Freedom, liberty. But remember the context of the time, I think, is so important. And look at the framework that was put together. I think that the framework that was put together for this country, I think, is so strong. And remember the why. Remember what the purpose was. I think it's so important. I think that's what Warren's saying, in my opinion.
All right. I want to provide context about Pete. I think I'm so terrible at pronouncing these. I think his name's Pete Legal. Legal?
His name Pete Finance?
Founder of Forest River, an RV manufacturer, acquired by Berkshire in 2005. Here's a thing I just really want to add. He said, yes, you make 100,000. I think I should make 100,000. But he structured a bonus tied to company profits.
Yes, that's right.
This is another thing that is so underappreciated. The founders, the CEOs, they should get paid well when the company does well. When I get fired up is when the founder makes $100 million and the company lost money.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there's a reason Buffett told this story. I agree with you. I thought this story was great. This was right after we talked about how Bill Ackman wants to run a Buffett, but charge a 1.5% management fee in a way that doesn't seem aligned with the shareholders of that potentially new company. But what Buffett goes on to say is Pete made tons of money. His business continued to perform exceptionally.
Rush.
I made tons of money. Everyone wins. this is how you want to structure these agreements. I don't care. I don't think Buffett cares either. I don't care if his salary is 100 or 150 or 200, right? He has significant skin in the game. He's being paid a representative wage, and he has the ability to keep that business within his family, which he wanted, and have Buffett's backing. It's brilliant.
You must have, because of what you just said, you must have read the footnote. Did you see the footnote that he had in there?
To refresh my memory.
The footnote said, my good friend Montel said, this is how you do it.
You're fired.
This is how you do it. You didn't read that footnote?
No, missed it.
Okay, well, that was my favorite part of the whole letter. Okay, so another thing. So I'm going to skip past some of the operating things because like they made a whole lot of cash this last year.
It's a great company.
Yeah, phenomenal. Okay. Warren, he also talked about, and this is the reason why I like this again, it's what's America, what's the core of it. He's just giving us a little bit of lesson. It's like he's sitting down with a child and trying to not directly say a couple things, but saying those things. He once said,
of what all investors, like 99% of investors, children, temper tantrums, etc.
Not on this here podcast. We adults.
I know. We're the 1%.
That's right. That's right. So he says, everyone makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. What's important is admitting mistakes. And he gives a little Charlie Munger throwback here. He says, don't do, as Charlie used to call it, thumb sucking, which means sitting around sucking on your thumb like Tom Thumb. If Tom Thumb was a thumb, he didn't suck on that. That would be a whole thing. Anyway, but don't sit around thumb sucking and procrastinate from just admitting that you were wrong. Sometimes you're wrong. It happens. Berkshire Hathaway has been wrong a number of times. If you can look at when you're wrong, just admit that you're wrong. This could be just me interpreting what's happening right now, but we have a leader of our society right now that's never admitted fault. I think ever.
It's politics talk, so Skippy is silent, and let's move on.
But it's important to me. This is societal talk. It's not even, but like that's important.
Fair. That's fair.
What Buffett is saying is like, if you make a mistake, admit it and learn from it and move on. Everyone does it.
I endorse that.
Yeah. Another thing he states is he goes, I'm proud to say this year, Berkshire Hathaway has paid more taxes than any company in history.
I'm such a fan of this. I will say it's unfortunate. So I separate this from the fact that sometimes when my tax dollars get to the government, it's not spent in the way that I wish it was, but that's a different equation. I think I'm so aligned with Buffett here. This is an incredible piece of pride. One, you want your company to make massive profits. That's a goal. When your company makes massive profits, it probably has a big tax bill. That's okay. The society that we live in, the greatest country in the world, I would argue, is because of those taxes.
It's okay so long as it's spent well. Or actually, it's okay so long as it's not spent poorly. I wouldn't even say well.
Yeah. But I just love that he calls us out. Like, it's so cool that this is a sense of pride where there are other people who have a sense of pride about how they might manipulate the tax code. And I don't blame them for that. I think you follow the rules, but if it goes against the intent of the laws, it gets pretty tricky.
Yeah, it does. I love this fact. But again, he says we spent the more than anyone's ever spent in taxes. Treat it well. Respect the money. I would actually say that's what it, just respect the money. I love that fact. If you take those three things, the Pete story, the mistake element of this, and treat the money well, to me, I'd say what he's calling out in society right now is understand your roots. We have the best foundation for a country anyone's ever had, which I believe. Respect it. That's it. And I love it. All right. Where do you want to go next?
We're going to go to Morgan Housel.
Ooh. Morgy Morgs. Okay.
All right. So to keep it moving,
he does not like it when you call him that, by the way.
Morgan Housel wrote a piece for you this week, Doogles.
Oh, loving it.
This is great. I don't have enough time to talk through all the details, but I want to hit on a few points. It is called Pure Independence. It starts with a simple sentence. A simple formula for a pretty nice life is independence plus perfect. He goes through 7 points here.
Purpose.
What I tried to say. Thank you. Independence plus purpose. That is tough to say.
It is a lot of plosives.
Right. He talks about how purpose is different for everyone. Can come from your community, your religion, your work, many things. But then really talks about how independence can make a task that's not so much fun a joyful task. This just resonates with me. This is something I've tried to articulate for years. And in most cases, Morgan does a better job articulating it than I do. I just love this. I have a few quotes, but I think I'd like everyone to take 5 seconds and just think about what in your current setup lacks the independence that you wish it had, and how it might be more fulfilling if there was a little more independence there. And then the flip side of that is some people go all in on the independence bandwagon, and they're great. They don't answer to anyone, but they completely lack purpose, right? They're just like out there floating in the Atlantic Ocean. The waves are taking them there wherever they want, but there's no destination to get to.
And that's right. And in my opinion, it's because the order is incorrect there. Purpose comes first.
Ooh, okay, let's talk about
that's the why. I'm gonna quote Simon Sinek real quick, and it's a book that I'd recommend. Start with why.
Yes.
The why is the purpose. Independence is the tool. If you got a hammer, no nail. What you doing? What you doing, carpenter? Jesus? You're just a man with a hammer. That's it.
Okay. I'm tempted to dive into that, but we might save it. What I see, though, Doogles, regardless of which one is first, and I'm not trying to stereotype or throw shade here, but it's like the person that maybe can't figure out the independence or purpose piece, they end up paralyzed and do something they don't like for 45 years. And then look back and go, yeah, I wish I would have done that a little differently. Well, I think I'd argue that regardless of which enlightenment you get, if you have one, go for it. Because with independence, you might more clearly be able to identify your purpose.
I almost brought this up during the last conversation, but I'm going to do it now because now it's going to come up twice in my head. Where I think a lot of the paralysis comes from is trying to figure out the right thing. People are often consumed with like, what's the right thing? How do I get the right exact thing? And I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to flip a script right now. As my good friend, Missy Elliott, what's up, Missy? As my good friend, Missy Elliott said, put the game down, flip it, and reverse it. Because it's way, boop. Here's what I'm about to do. Instead of saying, what's the right thing? Instead say, what's the wrong thing? And just don't do that. That's a great place to start. And if you start eliminating the wrong things, eventually, because I don't think there is one right thing. I think it's a whole suite. Like there are probably 40 different things that could, I'm making that number up, that could make you happy if you did them. And there are 6 that will make you unhappy. And human beings naturally, I believe, do what's in their worst interest.
No.
I think we do. I think human beings naturally, because we are naturally... I mean,
we generally find food and shelter, Doogles. I mean, come on now.
Do we? Look at the housing situation.
Oh, gosh.
Do we? Look at the housing situation. We got eggs up 40%. Talking about food and shelter. Anyway, no, but I think human beings, because we're wired to be short-term focused because we're wired for survival. To your point, actually, we're wired for survival. So We're wired to be very short-term focused, and short-term generally gets in the way of long-term because we weren't made to live this long. So we end up having like 30 more years than we had before. And so we need to be more long-term focused than we used to be, but we're still wired because of evolution to be short-term focused. I'm just going out there. So therefore, human beings, I think, naturally do what's in their worst interest. I think I fundamentally believe that. I don't think we have to. I just think it's like natural. So you have to question, am I about to do something that I like want to be doing or something that is just like is ingrained? System 1, system 2 thinking. Come on now. So in this context, I think if instead we think more about the long term, then you'd say, all I have to do, going back to Munger, is to avoid the wrong things. And if you just ask the question of like, what's the wrong thing? It's probably what you're doing in that moment because human beings are naturally wired to do what's in their worst interest. And if you just eliminate some of the wrong things, you at least end up in a right-ish path. And that's the glory.
I want to argue with that. I think it's hilarious that last night you went out for your bachelor party and like read Munger's biography while drinking beers because that's all you're talking about today.
I'm not sure what the rest of these people were doing. I'm not sure what the rest of these people were doing.
You're having a blast over there, right? Okay. There's one quote I want to read as it relates to thought independence that I really like. If I can predict your views on one topic by hearing your views about another unrelated topic, you are not thinking independently. Example, if your views on immigration allow someone to accurately predict your views on abortion and gun control, there's a chance you're not thinking independently.
Name that movie.
Standing ovation.
Name that movie.
I don't know.
Good Will Hunting.
That's from Good Will Hunting?
Not exactly. But remember the scene where they're in the bar and they're talking to the dude from Harvard.
Oh, the economics coursework?
He just starts quoting something and then Matt Damon's character finishes the quote. That's the entire point. Is he saying, like, I know what you're just imitating somebody else. So I can finish your sentence because it's actually not your sentence. That's the entire point that you're bringing up right now. Is if you believe this and you're just following someone that they believe this, therefore they believe that, I can finish your whole sentence. Thought. Someone came to me. I was talking to someone. This was like 2 years ago. And they said, I'm a Republican, but I still care about the environment. And I was like, why are those two things like? Why do you have to say that?
At all. The latest, you just keep trying to drag me down this hole.
I'm not.
The thing that drives me crazy about Congress in the last 15 years is when you see one side of the aisle vote entirely for this issue and another side of the aisle vote entirely for this issue. And it's like, guys, it requires more independent thought. There should always be crossover of 10, 20% if you're truly doing things that better your constituents. It's not that black and white. It's just not. You could be a Democrat who happens to have a heavy coal mining interest in your constituents, and that might mean that it's a bad example. But anyway, yes, completely. Think independent thought might be the scarcest resource when it comes to independence that's out there right now, and let's fix that, people.
Yeah, I love that. Look at you.
Okay, we're not going to have time for the Jordan 4 train heist, but let me just tell you, folks, if you want to do some research online, basically the episode of Breaking Bad where they steal whatever chemical from the train, that happened with sneakers this week, and I think it's the most hilarious topic on earth.
You got to say a little bit more than that.
No, there's some mashup with Jordan 4s and Nigel Sylvester, and these people stopped a train and stole 2,000 pairs of sneakers. Like, it's hilarious. It's so great.
You know, one thing that's really ironic, you're bringing up Jordan. Remember Jordan Sparks? She won American Idol back in the day.
Okay.
And she had a song called No Air. That'll make no sense. Okay, so I'm going to reach into the fishbowl, and I want to talk about a thing that we've actually hit on a few times over the last maybe a year, but probably really 6 months, because it's come up again and again in different ways. And this is the percent of spending that's happening from disproportionate amount of spending happening from higher income folks in the country. Yes. And it's mirroring the stock market right now from a concentration perspective. All right. The first time we talked about this, at least the first recent time we talked about this was a few months ago. We're looking, I think it was a Bloomberg piece, and it was looking at the increase of spending that was happening from higher income folks. I think they broke down higher income into K or more. So it was actually lower income than the most recent piece that we're talking about, which is 250, I believe. So that was the first time we talked about it. Now I want to turn it over to you because you sent me over something that was hitting on more of like the 250. Was it 250 plus, I think?
Yeah. I mean, here's the high level talking point. The top 10% of Americans by income are buying 50% of the total goods.
That's huge.
Huge. So everyone who listens to the show knows that I'm a Nike shareholder, right? And Nike finally appears to have gotten their marketing act together, and they also have a bunch of new releases coming out and stuff. One of the new releases, I think, tells this story, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But
Is the new release a pair of Jordan 4s that you just stole from?
No. It's like a Lululemon Aloe competitor.
There you go.
Where they have cool stuff, but it's like pants are $150, right? And I'm going, that looks cool. That wasn't typically Nike's bread and butter, but think about this, Doogles. If 50% of the money gets spent with the top 10% of people in incomes, you want to sell the $200 sweatshirt. That's just the way you move the needle, because selling a bunch of $100 shoes or a bunch of $20 socks or whatever, like, it doesn't really do things when you could have 10 times the revenue coming from just one purchase. I see this happening everywhere. And it's basically what this article says is the only people that really matter in terms of your gross revenues are the super rich people.
And this is the cat in the cradle and the silver spoon. Do you recall, I think it was only 2 weeks ago, I sent you an article. We didn't talk about it in the pod. I sent you an article about how Walmart's shoppers.
Walmart's moving upscale.
That's
and I was shocked by it, but this speaks to the exact same thing. It's like, I was like, wait, Walmart's trying to go up market? Well, of course Walmart's going up market because their core bread and butter over the last 30 years isn't really spending more money, and they still have shareholders to satisfy. So they have to do this. They have to appeal to the luxury consumers.
There it is. What else do you think we need to say there? I got lots.
Go ahead. Those are my main points. I got fired up.
I mean, it is the problem that's happening right now. I'm trying to not do this come from a pure place of gloom and despair. That's what I'm trying not to do. We are fragile, must be Italian. That's where we are right now. It's just so fragile. And I hope that we can come down from the fragility, and let's just recognize that it's fragile. That's it, and respect it.
I think the article summed it up perfectly. It says, if the extreme spending habits of a small group of people are what's keeping a large portion of the economy churning, then that group also has an outsized ability to bring everyone else down with them.
Can I say this back just to make sure I heard you right? If the extreme performance of a small group of stocks
is what's keeping the entire market going.
Go on.
Well, you went doom and gloom, I'll tell you.
I said barely any words, though, because you don't need that many words with this one. It's hard, man. It's hard. And I own one of them.
Yeah, completely. You do. It's all your fault.
Doogles.
I think we better hit the listener mail, huh?
Jingle time?
Let's do it.
Jingle jangle.
They fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Fight. The Skippy and Doogles show.
All right. Long-term listener. Long-time listener? I don't know how sayings go. But Chris.
Our boy Chris. What's up?
How's it going, Chris? Chris came through with, oh my goodness, Angela Lansbury. When was the last time we talked about Angela Lansbury on here? Angela Lansbury, which Chris did not mention, but the reason I bring it up is because it's a tale as old as time. Beauty and the Beast. This is a classic question and a really important question. We have raised one of the parts of the answer to this question when it comes to a limitation I actually have on my side. Here's what Chris brought up. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I'm going to give the two sides of this. And I love that Chris actually raised two sides of it because there are two sides that are important here. The overarching question is limitations on your portfolio. Should you make them when it comes to 1, morality, and 2, politics?
Yes.
That's the overarching question. And Chris, we finna talk about it right now. And I think the answers are nuanced for each of them, in my opinion. You have strong feelings here. And so I want to like, this is like a bowl in a china shop over here. And can we still say that in this country? Or do we have to give it a bowl in a Taiwanese factory?
I hope you get put on probation. That'd be great. Yeah, Chris, I thought this was great. The morality piece is really important. I can't tell you how many people I talk to investing about and say, well, I would never own X stock because of X. My approach is pretty free markets here.
Oh my gosh.
It's a deal. I'm going to buy the thing. Almost always. And my logic behind that is far from perfect, but in most cases, I'm not funding a startup whose moral beliefs I disagree with. I'm buying a public equity. I'm not even helping finance an IPO. So if there's a company that has some moral concerns and I were the banker that's writing that check to get them runway for the next 3 years, or the venture capitalist, I might think about this differently. But in public market investing, typically what I'm doing is I'm looking for a very desirable stock that has 50% margin of safety, where I am comfortable that I can sleep well at night and I can make a really nice return on this thing. When that happens, whether it's with a tobacco stock or alcohol stock or something else, me buying that stock and making a nice return for my family doesn't really change the needle on if that company can continue to operate, right? Market dynamics change those things. So I'm happy to ride that wave that I think is happening anyway. And I don't let my moral concerns get in the way of that. Typically, I don't think I ever have. But Doogles feels differently.
Oh, wow. You put words in my mouth, which for the record is unsanitary.
Okay, let's see. How do you feel about this?
Before I get directly to the answer to the question, what I'll say is this. The best investment strategy. Could you hear that?
No.
Something super loud just happened. Okay. The best investment strategy is the investment strategy that you can stick with for the long haul. So I parlay that into, if you can make the decisions ahead of time, what you're going to do, then awesome. If you make the decision based off the one-offs, I think that is where the problem starts to come into play. So for what I mean by that is this. If you're like, I'm never going to invest in tobacco stocks. And the reason I bring that up is because the one stock that I'm not allowed to buy is Altria Group, which I'm actually from an investor perspective fine with, because it's the best performing stock of all time. And so its gas is gone. But if you say, like, I'm never going to invest in tobacco stocks, then great. Eliminate it from the beginning.
Yeah.
But if you just take one particular stock that's coming up and say, would I invest in this now? I think that's where the problems really come into play, because there's so much subjectivity. It kind of goes back to when we talked about, was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? It was very recent. We talked about you and your Fox News Corp fiasco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was for premium listeners only, though, Doogles. I mean, come on now.
Have I
let
the cat out of the bag in the silver spoon at this point? So, but the point is, if you make one-offs, it just becomes more problematic.
Yeah, but here's the other point. I don't want to steal your thunder, but I want to add to this. Like, the most fun example to talk about right now is Tesla, because Tesla, over whatever a decade, has been like a stock that technologists love, a stock that environmentally friendly people love. Like this, we're going to change the world. It's all battery powered cars, to a stock that some of those same people don't like anymore. And I totally understand why. But my point is, it's really hard to know what twists and turns are going to happen over the next decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. You could go through any major stock and look at an 80-year history, and at times they might be on the right side of an issue you care about, and then 20 years later they might be on the exact opposite side. It's not that cut and dry, man.
No.
It's just really complicated.
Especially, and this is the reason why I think it's important to break apart the two different things, the morality and the politics, is because the politics, you're generally talking about a human being in a short period of time. And that and investing, to me, that one feels much more clear cut, where I'm just like, no, like I would not change anything based on the politics. I don't care long term, short term, ahead of time, not ahead of time. Because if you say, I'm never going to invest in a company where the CEO has different political beliefs than I do, then first of all, you have to be so clear about what are the political beliefs you're talking about. And it gets so messy, and that one to me is much clearer. The morality, I think if you do ahead of time, you can figure that out. Like I think that one you can kind of figure out, but there's still messiness that ends up coming up with that. But if you're clear with it, I think that's fine. The political one, I think, is super hard to do. Tomorrow, the person that you're talking about, like we talked about Bill Ackman last week, right? Mm-hmm. You had me not talk about his social activism stuff, but anyway, he's coming out with a lot of statements lately around, like in the last couple of years, DEI, et cetera, et cetera. Tomorrow, If you said, I'm not going to be an LP in Pershing's fund because blah, blah, blah. Tomorrow, Bill could wake up and be like, oh, actually, I read an article and I feel differently today. And so now you're going to be like, oh, I'm gonna like you. And you also don't, as we talk about a lot of times when you're looking at specific investments that other investors make, and we say, you don't know what the rest of their portfolio looks like or what had them invest in that, how they're hedging. There's like so much that comes into it. All that we see is what someone is saying publicly. You don't know.
True. But like, let's do a real life example. You can make fun of me all you want. When oil prices went negative for a day in, I think it's 2020, I bought ExxonMobil stock and then I waited, I don't know, I think 2 years and it doubled and I sold it. If you are a person that is not a fan of ExxonMobil, like, did my making money there do anything for that company's ability to operate or continue to run its business? I don't think it moved the needle in any way, shape, or form. Maybe if every U.S. citizen decided not to buy the stock, that would change the dynamics of how they run their business. And totally, when the stock price is high, that gives their CFO more options for how he finances future expansion and everything else. So I'm not saying it's completely disconnected, but
no,
it seems pretty dang disconnected from how the company operates. There's also an argument that never gets mentioned here that I think is important. If you truly disagree with a company's operating in a certain way, the way to get it changed is probably not to buy the stock. It's probably to buy the stock, buy enough of the stock that you can actually talk to the board of directors and have some change happen.
You're introducing a little bit of contention here. 2 different points. Okay, so the first one, I think that the general stance of saying that my vote doesn't matter, my money doesn't matter here, is a stupid one.
Stupid.
I'm throwing out the S word. Because then you don't do any, like, if you take that stance on everything, the reason I brought up the vote point is important, because if you take up that stance on anything, then you don't let morality come into any part of your life. Because I'm just one person. What does it matter?
I don't even mean it in like a small potatoes way. I just mean it in like the stock's going to continue to publicly trade.
Yeah.
With or without me, and the BlackRocks or the big hedge funds are going to take positions without factoring in morality. I just don't think it moves the needle. I'm welcome. I can be wrong.
You're right. It doesn't move the needle. It absolutely, like, that is just truth. For an everyday retail investor, it does not move the needle. But when the question that's being raised is around morality,
where I would get defensive is I feel like I'm being cast into a person that would say, I'm not voting in this election because my vote doesn't count, and I would never be in that camp.
I pushed you. Yeah, I absolutely pushed you there because contention is my middle name.
Okay. I think they're 2 different things in terms of stock market investing versus voting for the leaders of the country.
I mean, it's kind of like do you remember when Dollar General, I think it was at some point, Dollar General came out and they were mistreating their workers really poorly. And I said, I don't think I can own this stock anymore. And so I sold it 2 years later.
Unbelievable.
No, I do think that the point around like my dollars don't matter, I would put that aside. I think it is true, but I put that aside because if you're really saying like me buying a stock is me being a part owner in a business.
Yes.
So you should believe in the business, and you should be clear on the reason you believe in the business. It's a business.
I'd love for my views to change here, and so hopefully you can convince me, or the listeners convince me. I'd love for that, but it's not always that clear cut. If I'm buying iron manufacturer and their current market cap is 100 million, and they're sitting on 500 million of finished iron ready for sales. No, I'm just saying that I want the 500 million here.
Absolute mole. The reason I bring that up is actually to say that you should know why you're investing in the business. And sometimes you invest in a business for reasons that go beyond the numbers on the 10K. Sometimes you invest in the business because the business, and businesses change owners, Businesses change CEOs, businesses change a lot of things. And if you're investing in the core part, like if you're investing in the fact that there's like a mine that exists that has some rare mineral, and you go, that's what I'm investing in, is the mine, then you're not investing in the CEO.
What's the Buffett quote? I'm going to get it wrong, but it's something like, you should invest in a business that you think a monkey can run because eventually they will, or a dummy, or what's
Something like that. Yeah.
That's how I invest. Like, I'm almost always saying this company is on such solid financial footing that it doesn't matter who runs it. So maybe that's the core to our slight disagreement here, is like, I've never been like, this individual is going to lead this company. I'm going to buy the company regardless of valuation. That's not how I work.
Yeah, we're different. We are different in that world. I actually do think that sums up difference. Broadcom, if Hock Tan tomorrow said, I'm leaving Broadcom, he's the CEO, that stock probably goes down 80% because Monkey could not run that business.
Yeah, so I like that you called out this, because that fundamental mindset in terms of why you're buying the business, in a mindset more like yours, it becomes more important to say, hey, like, the morality in politics might matter because it's a bet much more on people than a bet just on numbers.
Yeah. That's right.
Do you want to put a bow on this by talking about politics? Because I think we've only really talked morality at this point.
I know. I talked politics before, because that one is pretty clear cut for me. What is politics? People can change their view tomorrow. They can decide. You can break down, like, when you talk about politics, there's actually probably one or two fundamental items that you're really talking about and putting it in politics. Like, when I say that, I mean, is it women's rights? Is it about immigration? Is it about voting? Is it about whatever? There's so many things you can like mask in politics. And to me, I think that's one where the person, again, could read a book and be like, oh, I've changed my mind. And now you like buy or sell based on what the person is saying or doing that day. Like, that one to me, I feel like is like a do not touch a political view with a 10-foot pole. Elon Musk. Let's take this. You did not name Elon Musk, by the way, Chris. Elon Musk, though, is all up in politics today. I would not be surprised. I don't believe this is what I'm about to say. I do not believe is true, but I would not be surprised if it were. If Elon Musk was doing this whole thing to pass one bill that said that, like, people got EV credits or whatever it might be. Like, this man has a chessboard. He views the entire world as a game and a chessboard. And I would not be surprised if he would say anything or do anything to do one thing. I made up the EV credit. That's a simple one. It could be like, actually, it's free to go to Mars, whatever it is. I would not be surprised if he was doing everything that he's doing just to make it easier for his businesses to run. And so if you say, I'm not going to invest in a company because of his politics, you have no idea actually what this guy's politics were. Elon Musk came out, I think it was like whenever the last election was, after that one, and was so anti-Trump, like vigorously anti-Trump, and now is in his, like, he's like a kangaroo Joey hanging out in like all the gooey juices right now. And so you ask me, what are his politics? I have no idea.
Fair.
Good news is I just figured out what the image for this episode is going to be.
Very fair. All right, guys. We are new to YouTube, and if you use the YouTube music player, please subscribe there. That helps more people find the show. We're also pretty much everywhere these days. Hit skippydoogles.com. You can find links to the Substack, everything else. And then we don't mention it often, but we do premium subscriptions. You can get the show early. You can get extra details. Sometimes the shows go longer for premium subscriptions. You can find that at skippydoogles.supercast.com, and that really helps support the show. So thanks for hanging out with us. Apologies on my end for Doogles trying to talk politics the entire show, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.